Meeting back to order. Standing Committee on Access to Information, Privacy and Ethics, meeting 125. Pursuant to Standing Order 1064, meeting requested by 4 members of the committee to discuss their request to undertake a study of communications between the President of the Treasury Board Secretariat and the Irving Group of Companies. Mr. Kent.
Thank you very much, Chair. And just as a matter of clarification, it is, as you said, a motion signed by all 4 members of opposition members of the committee. It was a letter that I drafted and which Mr. Angus very graciously agreed to and signed, and as he is wont to do, he submitted it before we accumulated the signatures on the other 3 letters, and so while it's in his name before us today, I just wanted to let you know that it was an all-party agreed letter. And if I could just read the motion, it is that the Standing Committee on Access to Information, Privacy and Ethics invite the Clerk of the Privy Council of Canada to appear before the Standing Committee on Access to Information, Privacy and Ethics to ensure that all briefing notes, reports, and emails related to the 16 communications between the President of the Treasury Board and the Irving Group of Companies since February 17, 2016, and all briefing notes, reports, and emails produced within the Treasury Board Secretariat related to Project Resolve since October 19, 2015, have not been destroyed. And if I could just briefly speak to the motion. The opposition, as we've made clear in recent weeks, is not at all interested in what the contents of any of those cabinet documents might be. But we are, with regards to the fair and equal judicial process that every defendant should be allowed, that those documents be released by the Prime Minister and the Privy Council office to ensure that Vice Admiral Norman is properly and adequately and fairly prepared to defend himself against the charges which we believe have more than a little political overtone to them. We are also presenting it because we know that, and I know there are those who have ridiculed the request in the past few days, but we are making this motion because we know that there are individuals within the Prime Minister's office who have been associated with the criminal destruction of documents in the previous Liberal government of Ontario. So we have a very legitimate concern. We would not, on the attendance of the clerk of the Privy Council before us, be interested at all in asking any questions about the contents or the nature of those documents. It would be simply to ensure, as I believe we need to be assured, Canadians need to be assured, certainly Admiral Norman needs to be assured, that those documents requested exist and have not been interfered with, and to of course, make the continuing request more to the Prime Minister that he follow the example, the sterling example of former Prime Minister Paul Martin in 2004 at the time of the developing advertising scandal, when he voluntarily provided hundreds of documents, cabinet documents, to the defendants in that case.
Thank you, Mr. Kent. Any discussion? Mr. Erskine-Smith?
I just very briefly say, having reviewed the letter and then reviewed Treasury Board policies with respect to the preservation of documents, there's no evidence that those policies haven't been followed, and so I certainly won't be, and I don't think anyone on this side will be supporting the motion as a result.
Any further discussion? Anybody else?
Recorded vote.
Recorded vote. Okay.
The question is on the motion of Mr. Kent. Mr. Erskine-Smith.
No.
Mr. Saini.
No.
Madame Fortier.
No.
Mr. Bayless.
No.
Mr. Picard.
No.
Mr. Kent.
Yes.
Mr. Warwa.
Yes.
Mr. Davies.
Yes. So the motion is defeated, and that's, yes, Mr. Smith?
So given we've got some time in discussing committee business, and given we have a few meetings in November that we need to fill, given the analysts will be drafting the report after we give them recommendations on Tuesday, I'd like to move that pursuant to Standing Order 108, Sub 3, Sub H, Sub 7, the Standing Committee on Access to Information, Privacy, and Ethics invite credit card companies to attend to investigate how statements and purchase history are shared with U.S. authorities and any potential prejudice to Canadian customers, including of cannabis.
Any discussion?
We would agree to that request. Do we have an open date at the moment?
What day are you looking for? Or is
Just
there
one
anything
day.
specific?
In one of the free November days that we have.
Now
So
this,
we'll have Mr. Kent, then Mr. Saney.
this brings us to a point of consideration that we talked briefly about the other day, and that is, are we still intending to deliver our final report on the Cambridge Analytica Facebook aggregate IQ scandal before we rise at Christmas, or are we considering that it might be delayed till we return in January?
Let me just remind members that we're getting into committee business, and this is televised currently. So I don't know if we still want to have that as part of our televised presentation, or...
I'm happy to.
Okay.
No,
Just because basically our schedule for next week is open. We're looking at discussing committee business on Tuesday. We're actually looking at more fulsome, because of what Commissioner Tarian had said today, that his reports are coming out. I had my notes. December,
Motions, and then discuss scheduling
December
in
and
a steering
spring. So just hold on a sec. So it was a discussion that, and also the London trip too, to have that all taken into account in our final report. I would advise that we do that. So whether we want to do it in spring, that might be too late, but at least at the end of this next month, after November's expired. So any thoughts to that?
Oh, just my colleague Mr. Saney made a good point to me, which is simply that in terms of scheduling, let's resolve that in camera on Tuesday. In terms of adopting motions substantively, let's do so today. We've got a little bit of time.
Let's deal with the motion then on the table. And is any further discussion on the motion of Mr. Erskine-Smith? We're good. Call Mr. Davies.
It's advised that I think it would be Mr. Angus's preference that the StatsCan study is of a more timely nature and might be something that the committee may want to proceed with first.
I will, as chair, I will take the motions as they are presented on the table, unless Mr. Angus has a motion to that effect. I don't know if that's been done yet, so
I'm not sure.
I have to deal with the motions as they are presented
Right.
before me. So
Well, maybe I would move that amendment then, that if I may amend the motion on the table, that we would proceed with the study of the StatsCan. StatsCan study first.
that would have to be up to the motion.
If just wait, I've got a second motion to adopt that will satisfy your concern once we adopt this
I
one.
will
So.
table that
you okay?
motion pending Mr. Erskine.
So we're okay to vote on the current motion as it sits now? Okay, all in favor of Mr. Erskine-Smith's motion? All opposed? Carried. We have another motion by Mr. Erskine-Smith.
So-
Sorry, Mr. Saney, you did have your hand up to speak.
You give her.
So I have a motion
Sorry
also.
about that.
but I would-
I've got one second. So.
Okay, so to be clear, you're going to go before Mr. Erskine-Smith?
Yeah, this is a
Okay.
separate motion.
Okay.
That the Standing Committee on Access to Information, Privacy, and Ethics investigate the relationship between ticket brokers, such as Ticketmaster and StubHub, and secondary vendors to determine the extent to which financial data, purchasing data history, and other data are shared between them, and that no less than one meeting be dedicated to this study.
Okay. And again, we can probably have a more fulsome discussion of scheduling.
Yeah,
on
scheduling, I'm not
Tuesday.
really, that could be.
But the intent of the motion, any further discussion about Mr. Saney's motion?
Well,
Mr. Kent?
thank you, Chair. And I think it's a good motion. I think it's a worthy study, absolutely. I'm not sure that I would put it ahead of either the study is suggested.
We'll just put a bunch on the
Yeah,
table.
this is, we're not
I
going
also
to,
agree.
scheduling can be determined at a later time, but this is just to put the motion on there.
I'm conscious of the time too. It's getting close to 1:20 and we should be heading over to QP in short order. So, okay, so any further discussion about Mr. Saney's motion? All in favor? All opposed? Carried. Mr. Erskine-Smith?
So I would also then move and hopefully this satisfies Mr. Davies, I would move that our committee invite the Chief Statistician at Statistics Canada to discuss any information data requests of financial institutions and to ensure that the privacy interests of Canadians are adequately protected.
Okay. Is that, maybe just repeat that again for everybody around the table?
If extemporaneous speaking, but
Just saying,
to-
I'm just saying, Mr. Davies had an interest in a specific topic, so does that meet your requirement?
It does. Thank you.
Okay, so any further discussion about the motion? All in favor? All opposed? Carried. Is that it for? Perfect.
well, no, I'll leave it for later. I had
all-
one other, but I'll leave it for later.
Okay, we'll adjourn. We'll committee business on Tuesday. Have a good day.